You are Locked On Falcons POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Falcons POSTCAST, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tanitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Aaron Freeman. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And of course, our Locked On Falcons POSTCAST is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Free said earlier that you do not want that call from your mama. I guess the Falcons listen, because they're not getting that call, at least not tonight, because they went into Philly. They did what they were supposed to do. They got the 22-21 win, and we are absolutely thrilled to be having this conversation this week versus the conversation we had last week. And obviously, we're going to break down what we saw on offense, what we saw on defense. But Jarvis, Aaron, we've got to start with the final drive of the game. 1 minute and 5 seconds left. You're thinking to yourself, okay, can the Falcons do this with no timeouts? How are they going to drive pretty much the length of the field? And 6 plays, 70 yards later, they get it done, even in spite of a celebratory penalty, which, I mean, Younghoe Koo, I mean, you just asked him to kick a 48-yarder for an extra point. No big deal. That's how it was going for him. That's how it's always going for him. But what was for you, Jarvis, when you look at the entirety of that particular drive, what was the most impressive thing for you and how the Falcons were able to close this game out to get this win?
They made Kirk feel comfortable. Like I talked about this earlier today, just on the Atlanta football party. They had to make him feel comfortable. The offensive line owed him a big one from last week because he absolutely took a beating from TJ Watt and company. But the way they protected on that drive right there, you got to give kudos to that offensive line because Kirk was back there eating pizza, reading the newspaper. He was ordering the Uber Eats, like from Big Dave's cheesesteak. Probably gonna have Big Dave's cheesesteak when he get home and start talking a little trash. Say, yeah, this the real cheesesteak. Philly fans, all that to them. So, yeah, for me, I feel like you got to give the kudos to the offensive line because this offense took a beating. Zach Robinson took a beating. I love what I saw from him, just from the selection, and I love how he listened to our podcast, as he was up there, prepping for the game and saying, hey, I got to mix in Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, and all that stuff. So, yeah, for me, overall, I just felt like this was I said the offensive line had to get the party started. They started that mug, and they finished for sure.
Indeed. And let's keep it on this particular drive because it was so impressive to be able to see the Falcons go down the field like they were able to do with such a short period of time, just literally picking apart, it felt like, just with so much precision, Aaron, just picking apart that Eagles defense in that final drive, just to see what we were able to see out of not just Kirk Cousins, but also to see what Darnell Mooney was able to do, and obviously Drake London capping it out with the touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's really the thing that impressed me. You got to see Kirk spread the ball around. Kyle Pitts starts them off with a nice first down. Then you get 2 big plays to Darnell Mooney. You almost have a touchdown to Ray McLeod. You got a little mug there in the end zone, but yeah, the refs were giving us favorable calls in the first half, so they had to swing it back to the Eagles in the second half. And then you finalize it with the touchdown pass to Drake London. And so you're seeing all of these weapons that the Falcons have that, a lot of people are like, hey, where are these weapons at? Why aren't they having, the big games? And they showed up in the biggest moments for the Falcons, and to sort of see where you're off, and you're seeing kind of a glimpse of what this offense can be, what this team probably envisions this offense being, which is, hey, it's not just one guy, it's not just 2 guys or whatever. You got to defend everybody because all of these guys are capable of making plays. And that, to me, was the thing that stood out to me. And Jarvis, just as a reminder, it's DoorDash, not Uber Eats. It's Locked On. We're sponsored by a certain thing.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. This is why I feel like I value our friendship, because we'll check each other. When we're in the wrong, of course. I take that Uber Eats back. It's all about the DoorDash, baby. Come on, Kirko. Go ahead and order that DoorDash, man, so it can be ready for you when y'all touch back down, man. I think Dave's Cheesesteak is open a little early. I'm giving them free publicity too. Shoot, we might have to switch that up too.
Exactly. But you make a great point, Aaron, about what we saw throughout the course of the game in terms of the passing game, because literally Kirk was able to hit 6 targets throughout the game. Everybody from Darnell Mooney, who obviously had a heck of a game, 3 catches for 88 yards, but some big plays at the moments where they needed it most, but even down to being able to get Tyler Algier in the game. I think we kind of forget how much he improved last season in being a pass catcher out of the backfield. And so just for him to be able to get that 1 catch for 12 yards, just to be able to extend your drive. I think those are some important pieces as well. So I know we want to kind of dig into Zach Robinson and his play calling. I want to get to that in a moment. But before we do, got to also talk about something that we talked about earlier in the show today, which is what was one of the things that we thought that this Falcons offense could take advantage of, that we saw the Packers offense take advantage of last week with this Philadelphia Eagles team, right? And that is being able to run on them. That's exactly what they did. But we wanted to see whether or not the Falcons were going to not just be able to run on them, but was it actually going to help the Falcons to get in position to get in the end zone, which it did multiple times. And we wanted to see Zach Robinson use both of his running backs in the right situations. Jarvis, do you feel that we saw both Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson utilize the right way in the run game this week?
I'm about to say a 1,000%, 999%. I would have liked to Tyler Algier been on that 4th and 1, maybe. I know that might be asking a little bit too much. I can see Aaron shaking his head like, "Nah, man, we need sweet Bijan, man."
I'm with you on that, I think 1 yard. I want Algier out there.
And if you're going to run it up the gut, then it should be Algier, no question.
Give it to him. Give it to feed the beast, because he searches for contact. I promise you, he almost like, oh, wait a minute, ain't nobody. I need to find somebody. Let me go get him. So that outside of that though, I love it. I loved it. That outside zone. We talked about how those edges was a little soft for Philadelphia, right? Because Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat. I talked about with Hugh about how, hey man, those guys getting a lot of heat up there in Philly, and they were able to take advantage of it time and time again. Aaron, I saw a block executed by number 8, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was out there sealing off the edge, sir. I'm telling you, everything was working. All 11 people. We talking about 9 and 10 people working. One guy misses his block. Drake London was out there blocking downfield, springing Bijan Robinson open. I'm talking about, it was just one particular play. It was an outside zone play to the left. And Drake had kind of motioned in some, like a half motion, and then he kind of shot upfield once they snapped the ball, and he was able to get in up on that safety so quickly. And then Bijan Robinson just shot up in that doggone gap. I was like, man, this is beautiful, man. This is beautiful. This is just like what Free mentioned. This is how they envision this offense when they put it together, as far as from Terry Fontenot all the way down to Zach Robinson, all the way down to what Kirk was told or sold on when they talked to him in free agency. This is exactly what this offense should look like. I'm talking about a hardcore running game, making sure you're getting the ball to both of your running backs, and then Kirko working out of the play action under the center, and working his magic. And I think that, just from the offensive line, wide receivers, tight ends, Charlie Warner out there just blocking his behind off like crazy. Yeah. You understand why they brought him in. It was just all around. This offense was it was humming. It had its moments, but it was humming for the most part.
And I think to your point, Jarvis, you have to keep plugging away. When you see something working, or you see that something is about to work, you got to just stick with it. And I felt like tonight, we actually saw Zach Robinson's understanding, okay, that's sort of working for me. That's giving me a couple yards here, a couple yards there. But if I keep at this, eventually this is going to start getting me chunk plays, and chunk plays are going to actually lead to something. But Aaron, for you, other than that one particular play that we all agree maybe should have gone to the different running back on 4th and 1, were you overall pleased with the run game that Zach Robinson called, particularly how he utilized Bijan and Tyler in the backfield?
Yeah, I definitely liked what I saw from the run game. I thought you saw a little bit more diversity. They were running left, they were running right, they were running outside zone, they were got a couple of jet sweeps in there. And I just checked my notes. I think Algier exited the game earlier with a knee injury, and I think maybe that's the reason why because I don't think he got a carry after that point, and that was like midway through the third quarter. So that might have been a factor of why he wasn't on the field. So we'll give the Falcons the benefit of the doubt. The one time we do that is when they win, and we'll give them on that one. But I think the run game was looking as good as you want it to be. And it was impressive to see, as Jarvis was talking about, you needed your offensive line to go out there and control the line of scrimmage against a tough Philly Eagles defensive front. But like the way that Philly plays under Vic Fangio, like they're so geared towards, we don't want to give up the explosive play that you can run on that type of defense. But it really was important for not only the offensive line to execute, but you had to have, a commitment from Zach Robinson to commit to the run. And you saw that in this game, that they were like, it was working early and we're going to stick with it. And it kept working for 4 quarters. And I think that was a big part of why that was able to put, the passing game in a position where they could, take advantage of their opportunities rather than needing to have to sort of carry the entire offense.
Yeah, and I think for us to be here having this conversation versus what we were having last week, and it was still an efficient game, right? It's still just 20 of 29 for 233 yards. But again, like we said, Kirk can chunk it all over the field, but you don't necessarily want him to chuck it all over the field, because if he's not, then that indicates you're also doing something balanced. But speaking of balance and speaking of getting it done really for a second week in a row, but this time we saw it pay dividends even down to the very last play of the game, and that's the defense. So yes, we're going to go on the other side of the ball when we come back. This episode of the Locked On Falcons Postcast is brought to you by PrizePicks and also by DoorDash. Now, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. So all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And with PrizePicks, they invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out. If your lineup isn't perfect, you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money as quick as 15 minutes later. Pretty cool. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. With PrizePicks, run your game. This episode of our Locked On Falcons Postcast is also brought to you by DoorDash. Now, you heard Jarvis mention it. When Kirko comes back, when that entire team comes back to Atlanta, they might be a little bit hungry, but probably far too tired to be cooking anything. So that's probably when it'll be a good time for those guys to call DoorDash, just like us. Man, it's a late night for us. We might be exhausted. We might just want another snack at the end of the night. That's why we might pick up a DoorDash as well. You can do the same thing. If you want to get a little late night snack, you can use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 values when you spend $15 plus on your first order. Now, it's a limited time offer. Terms do apply, and the promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. But the Falcons won, so you don't have to get lit like that anyway. Now, DoorDash, your door to game time greatness, is right there for you. Your door for more. Just download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. And again, no alcohol, because, of course, if there was, you need to be 21 plus to order it. You need to drink responsibly, but that's not going to be something you need to do. You just need to get your food on with DoorDash using the code LOCKEDONFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 on your first order. All right, guys, time to go to the other side of the ball. And this was one of those games where, and I just want to say this, you look at the last minute and 39 seconds of this game, and you saw really the entirety, all 3 phases coming together for this team, right? Because you see Kirk Cousins to Drake London. So you see that touchdown. Then you see Younghoe Koo come in and have to kind of rescue so we wouldn't have to go to overtime, right? And then Jessie Bates comes in like Jessie Bates does his thing, and of course intercepts Jalen Hurts as the Philadelphia Eagles are driving down for what could have been the go-ahead field goal, if you will. That said, Jarvis, I know we've said it and we've seen it so many times, but for you, just seeing what Jessie Bates III was able to do on that particular play, let's kind of talk about that and how important it is for Jessie Bates. Really, it was a microcosm of what we saw for this entire game where this defense showed up in the biggest moments for the Falcons.
His name is Thurston III, and he is the closer for his team on defense. Yeah. But in all seriousness, though, T, win and free, this is why you pay that type of money. And I'm talking to myself right now because, like I said, I will forever raise my hand, say, raise your hand if you don't really care about paying that a safety that type of money. Yeah, I was that guy, but oh my gosh, I have turned over a new leaf. I am a believer. I'm a believer in Thurston III to close that thing out the right way. And I was just saying to myself, I was like, they're going to have to turn this dude over because we talked about coming into this game how Jalen Hurts has the propensity to turn the ball over. He'll give it to you if you play it right. And I think that Jessie put himself in the right position. Also, AJ Terrell was right there too. He had some really good plays tonight. I'm talking about guys were catching the ball, but they were catching the ball and they were going straight to the ground immediately. And that's all you can ask for a lot of times. When you have these guys running all these short crossing routes and everything like that, specifically for a guy like Devontae Smith. So for me, I feel like it was that secondary working in cohesion and Thurston just out there just balling because he got me upset one time at one point during the game because he kind of took almost like a little inside when he was blitzing, and the few times that they did blitz, I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but he kind of went into Saquon Barkley, and then Barkley was kind of able to get on his outside shoulder, and then Jalen Hurts was able to take off outside. I was like, it almost wrecked my brain, but all in all, the guy came through like he normally does and went in a big moment, and he just closed that bad boy out. So yeah, Thurston, salute to you, my brother.
And it was also a typical Jessie Bates game in that we have become accustomed to seeing that big pick in the biggest moment, but also accustomed to not just for him. Actually, let me give the whole secondary credit for this. Those guys were out there tackling too. Like they were not playing games when it came to helping the defensive front to be able to stop what the Philadelphia Eagles were trying to do. Jessie Bates, of course, with 12 tackles to actually lead the team in tackles, 7 solo, and of course a tackle for loss, 2 passes defense. And then you've got Mike Hughes, 5 tackles, 3 solo tackles. You got Justin Simmons with the same, AJ Terrell with 7 solo tackles. So these guys were doing it in more ways, to your point, JD, not just about getting the big pick, if you will, but also making sure that, hey, if you get that little short route and you get 7 yards, but you're not getting 17, you're not getting 27. So just seeing that secondary be able to provide that type of support to the front 7 was also, I think, very, very critical to how this game turned out. But for you, Aaron, when you look at that final play of the game for the Falcons, where Jessie Bates said, yeah, not tonight, sir. And we talked about that, just like Jarvis mentioned, there could have been 4 turnovers by Jalen Hurts last week, but less a fumble that he recovered. But yeah, 2 picks and a fumble last week. And here he is giving the opportunity for the turnover, and Bates takes advantage of, well, you gave it to me. I'm there. That's kind of what I did.
Yeah, and got to give love to Caden Ellis on that play for getting the pressure on Jalen Hurts that led to the overthrow where, Jessie Bates was able to stay monogamous, as I like to say, and be in the position that he's supposed to be in, which, Jessie Bates, he'll cheat a little bit out there, but he was right in that position. He was ready to prevent that deep ball, and the Falcons were able to take advantage of that. But yeah, you got the front end and the back end working together, and I guess the middle, because Caden Ellis is technically a linebacker, so he's in the middle of the defense. So all of those guys working together on that final play to make, to seal the victory for the Falcons.
Yeah, and I think too, there were just moments throughout this game that also we saw what it was that I think you saw a little less. Remember, we were talking about last week, more of a bend but don't break defense. I didn't feel like it was that kind of bend don't break situation this game. Not that we're, JD, at the level of dominance per se for the defense, but I definitely think we saw a step in that direction for this Falcons defense tonight.
I think so too. Like I think the main thing for me once they put Jalen Hurts in a situation where he had to pass the ball, you saw what it was. It didn't look all that great. And specifically on that last drive, one of a friend of mine who used to be a beat writer for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he texted me. He's like, "Hey man, they gotta get a stop here." I was like, "Yeah, but Jalen Hurts, dog, he has to pass the ball. If he has to pass the ball, I like the Falcons' chances, and they were definitely able to take advantage of that. So I think but that step in the right direction that you're talking about. Now the next step is when it comes to these mobile quarterbacks,
Yep.
we got to stay in our lanes. We can't jump out. We got to be disciplined. We can't take that inside move when we think we can get it, and then we don't get it. And then next thing you know, the quarterback taking off for 10, 15 yards. That was the only way the Eagles could move the football tonight, period. And then, they were turning around and handing it off to Saquon Barkley too. So he had some success in that role, but it was a that first touchdown drive. He had Jalen Hurts had 47 yards rushing in that one drive. Come on now, like we gotta look at this thing. So I feel like the defense they're on to something. This is a good defense. I'm not gonna even wait to say that. This is a good defense, and like T you mentioned, they are taking the necessary steps to be dominant. We played 2 games. They only giving up 1 touchdown. So I think the Falcons defense is on the right track. They just got to clean up that little disciplinary stuff. If they can do that, man, the Falcons got something. They got something on defense for sure.
And free real talk, I think the other pieces, and you guys talked about it earlier tonight, you saw what they missed in Nate Landman not being out there. I mean, that was something that we knew could be a challenge for this defense. So I do suspect that hopefully getting him back, obviously he'll be out for a little bit, but hopefully getting him back at some point might also help to take them to that next level of where they need to be, and maybe getting them a step closer to dominance. But for the most part, for the players who are out there, they dominated. And just one more question for you guys before we wrap up, because obviously we talked about what we liked and maybe the one thing we didn't like in Zach Robinson's play calling tonight. What about Jimmy Lake's free for you? What were your thoughts on how he called the game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably disagree with you, T, on the bend but don't break thing. I think they did a lot of bending tonight. And, I think the Eagles got like 6-minute plus possessions on their last 3 possessions in the second half. And they were just basically grinding clock. And I think when people look at this game and they say when we're talking about how the offense played well, but they only scored, X number of points, a lot of that I think is because the Eagles were able to kind of take away 2 or 3 possessions from them by being able to retain the ball a little bit longer. So I think that's the main thing that they need to clean up. They just need to be a little bit better on 3rd and 4th downs to get some of those stops. Obviously, some of that is the tush push. You get in a 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 against the Eagles, they're pretty much always going to convert that at this point in time. But I do think Jimmy Lake, I liked seeing him dial up more pressure. I was wondering if they were going to sit back as they did last week in terms of letting sort of Justin Fields throw the football and not really dialing up pressure. It was effective when they did dial it up last week, but they just didn't do it that much. And I liked seeing from the jump that they were willing to heat up Jalen Hurts. That was an issue that the Eagles struggled with last year. They did well in week 1 against the blitz when the Packers did it, but you want to keep testing that. And I also think given where this defense is, just sort of sitting back and just letting Saquon Barkley just run it down your throat all game. As we saw, he was very effective doing that. As Jarvis had mentioned, Jalen Hurts was very effective on the scrambles and whatnot, and that was a big part. So those are something that they need to clean up a little bit as well. But I liked being a little bit more aggressive with some of those, blitzes and whatnot that they called in this game to get pressure on Jalen Hurts.
When we come back, we'll talk about giving out some game balls in What's Next. This episode of our Locked On Falcons postcast is brought to you by Gametime. Now, Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, so it shows you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. In fact, they also have this opportunity where you can take a look at your seats through like a panoramic view from your seat so that you're able to check it out, see if it's what you want to buy before you actually buy. And they also have a lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Gametime's ticket coverage helps you to be covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today, because what time is it? It's game time. All right, guys. So when it's a win, we want to go all in for everything that's positive, except, for the bend don't break defense. Okay, Free. No shade. No shade. No shade. No shade.
I'll have to disagree with you, Tio.
But he was so nice about it, Jarvis. How can you? I'm like, okay, that's fair. He was nice about it. I'll let him get over get away with that. But Free, since we're gonna be nice, we're in the spirit of giving and happiness and joy, because now the Falcons have improved the 1-1 on this season. I'll ask you to give your game ball on offense and your game ball on defense. And if you want to go for kicks and giggles and a bonus, you can even give a game ball for the sidelines.
Well, my game ball on offense, I'll give it to Kirk, right? There was a lot of pressure on Kirk this week. Prime time coming off the week that he did, all the question marks. Basically, we spent a whole week talking about Kirk Cousins and what's wrong with Kirk Cousins. And he looked fine. And, some of that may be owed to them doing things that he's a little bit more comfortable, more under center stuff, changing up his footwork a little bit, all those sorts of things. But you got to give love to the guy that, this is why the Falcons went out and were willing to pay all that money for him, to basically have a guy that they could trust in, the final 99 seconds of a football game to go down and win him a football game. And Kirk was able to do that. So he gets my game ball on offense. And defense, like, again, a lot of bending, but hey, Jessie Bates wasn't broke at the end of the game, so he'll get my my game ball at that point in time. He made the play that sealed the win for the Falcons, so I'll give it to Jessie Bates in that regard.
All right, fair enough. What about you, Jarvis? Game ball on offense, game ball on defense.
Can I get 5 of them, because I'm giving to the entire offensive line. Yeah, I'm giving the game ball to all those cats because they deserve it. I charge those dudes to make it up to Kirk. Give him a little dessert, after the dinner. You know what I'm saying? Because they fed him a lot of water and bread in an aluminum pan. They fed him prison food last week. Now we're talking about steak, shrimp, and lobster, baby. That's what's going down right now. So got to give a game ball to the offensive line. Defensively, my boy. 2 games, 2 sacks. Jew, man, he out there. Y'all better watch him. 15's getting warmed up. They was running the stunts out there. He was able to get in there and get it put Jalen Hurts on the ground. So those are the type of things that I love to see. I love to see it. You bring him in for a reason, and then he come in and do exactly what you brought him in to do. So yes, the game ball. I love Thurston. Hey, you close it out. But hey, I got I'm biased, man. I'm a former defensive lineman, baby. So I gotta give it to my guy, Jew man. Hey, 15. Let's keep getting it, baby. Averaging a sack a game. Shoot, I'll take it all day.
Well, I'm gonna give my game balls to the sidelines. I'm giving my game ball to Zach Robinson for calling a much better game on offense this week. A game where we saw all of the weapons and all the toys and trinkets that he had that he actually utilized in the toy box. But the ultimate game ball goes to the guy that gave him all the trinkets and gave Jimmy Lake all the toys, and that's Terry Fontenot. Because we wouldn't be having this conversation if Terry Fontenot hadn't gone out and gotten Jessie Bates III. We wouldn't have this conversation if he hadn't gone out and gotten Kirk Cousins. And to that end as well, a Matthew Judon, who, like you said, really, really starting to heat up and look good tonight, and even a Justin Simmons as well. So I want to give Terry Fontenot so much credit, because I know oftentimes we talk about what the coaches did in the game plan, and we talk about the players executing, but you don't have those players, you don't have those coaches if you don't have a Terry Fontenot going out and getting that. And I'm sorry, let me get one more game ball before we give a little bit of insight on what we think the keys of the game might be for next week. And that is Shout out to you, Coach Raheem Morris, for getting your first win as head coach of these Atlanta Falcons. You get my third game ball.
Can I give one more? Like,
yes.
Just to add a little cherry on top of that game ball for Raheem Morris. Why they over here throwing shade at that man talking about he was 9-28 after being down at halftime when they were interviewing? I was like, man, what is the pettiness going on up here? So yeah, for whoever put that graphic up, yeah, you know what you could do right there, because I was like, man, they are being super petty right now. So yeah, shout out to you, Rob, man, getting that first win. Let's go get another one, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jarvis, speaking of that, on closing out on that note, how do the Falcons come back home and get it done against these Kansas City Chiefs come Sunday?
Can you establish yourself? Can you establish your identity? You did it once. Being able to run the football, play action, make Kirk look comfortable in the pocket. Now you got Chris Jones. You got McKenzie, who's probably one of the better young corners in the entirety of the NFL. So right now, you got to continue to do that. Can you do that for a second game in a row against the best team, against Mr. Him, Patrick Mahomes? So can you do that? Can you establish your identity by doing these things that we just listed throughout this entire show? Can you do it in back-to-back games? I think if they're able to do that and have any remnants of it, I promise you they'll be putting themselves in a good position to get a win against the Chiefs.
Free, somehow the Chiefs escaped not once but twice this season in getting wins at the very end of games. If it comes down to it, how do these Falcons manage to escape themselves with a win against this Chiefs team?
Well, as long as Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the ball last, you got a chance to win the game. Because if he has the ball last, they're going to win. That's basically what we've learned over these last 7 years.
And see week 2.
So you gotta score more points than the other team, and then just hope that the way that the game goes, that you don't give 15 that ball with any amount of time left on the clock to go down the field and win the game, because he will do it 100% of the time. So if they can do that, they got a shot. But basically, if he has to go down the field and score, he's gonna do it. So that's what he's gonna do.
Yeah, and
another quarterback used to do that same thing.
Right.
I ain't gonna say his name on this show because he ain't leave no more.
No. Translation: offense, get it done one more time. And in the words of Aaron Freeman or Tanisha Batiste as Aaron Freeman, bend but don't damn break defense. All right, thank you guys so very much, our everydayers, for making the Locked On Falcons podcast your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by the Atlanta Football Party for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you next time.